KC radio show live, and you can listen to the live Facebook feed afterward or during. So today on the show, I have Joel. I always mess up your last
Schleicher.
name. Schleicher.
Yeah, it's convoluted in German.
Okay. Well, I have Joel Schleicher on to talk about all sorts of things, to talk about his experience with sound design, theater, and a certain life philosophy he has that I am actually really excited to talk about. But I'm going to start it off, I suppose, with a question, as you do. Or actually, how about we just start with this? So you do sound design.
Yes.
Yeah, so what's that all about?
So it's kind of really cool. Like for every show, you've got your lighting designer, your costume designer, things like that. Well, I do all the sound. So any music that comes into a show, any sound effects, be they pre-recorded or live, I either make them, find them, edit them. I process it and put it all into the file so it can be used for the show.
Yeah, so every sound effect you hear in whatever show Joel is working on, every gunshot, every musical cue, just everything, which is something people don't often think about when they go to see a show.
It's one of those things where if you do your job right, no one notices unless you do it like really freaking well. It's one of those things that kind of it sets the atmosphere of the piece and sets tones. And if it's done poorly, you'll notice it. But if it's done well, it just flows seamlessly and breezes past.
I've actually got a story about sound design going wrong. When I was in it would have been junior high. We went on a trip. I actually forget where, but we went to a show. It was like this country sort of southern show where they were like this family in the South. And one scene, one of them fires a gun.
And like, the gunshot filed in trigger?
Yeah, the gun, and he was supposed to shoot a window too, and the window break didn't happen until a long time later. But the guy brilliantly just said that window was really far away. it was great.
Yeah, sometimes you have those little ad libs, and that's where it really comes into having a good cast. And you've got to have that relationship with the cast knowing the tech, so that if something goes wrong, they can come to the rescue. And any really good cast can provide that safety net, if you will.
Yeah. Well, in any theater production and any production in general, it's like all the pieces working together.
Yeah, exactly.
If sound design is faulty, if the actors are faulty, it's not all going to work together.
Precisely. It's got to meld and be one cohesive piece.
Well, I love that. Someone's at the door.
I'll go find out.
Well, they might. Yeah. Go check to see if they need in. I didn't know we had a doorbell. That scared me. I mean, they're welcome to come in. Not from me. I don't think I emailed anyone. What are you guys here for?
I don't know. I was trying to look for the email, but someone asked me, so I think they do like, what's it called? Episodes every like Monday from 6 to something.
What's your name? I'm really curious about something. What's your name?
Aisha.
Oh gosh. Well, I bet you that was me, but I was asking if you'd want to come on a future one.
Oh.
You may have misinterpreted what I said. Yeah. That or I sent something wrong. Let me check my sent mail.
No, because then because I think you were like for
Aisha said.
Yeah.
Scheduling difficulties here at WVKC.
Yeah, please. Exactly. Hey. So this will be a future guest at some point, hopefully.
Oh, who's on here?
It's me.
Joel.
No,
for the stream?
Views, yeah.
Oh, 4 views so far. I don't know who. Probably my mom. Probably. But yeah, I sent you an email kind of explaining what it's all about.
Because I was unsure. I was like, is this Knox? Obviously, you had a Knox email.
I would have been much like more preparation with you. I would have gone together with you for a dinner and been like, so what are you into and stuff.
I was unsure, and I was like, to be honest, I didn't get the details, but at least like I don't want to not show, and then
Yeah, and then,
I
like-
just want to make sure.
No,
Okay.
you're good. I mean, thanks for caring enough to come up. Honestly, yeah, no, I probably next term because we have spring break.
It's the
coming
last
up.
show for the term.
Yeah, so next term I'll email you again and be like, hey, you want to get together for dinner
Okay,
or
okay,
lunch
sounds
to talk
good.
about your interest and the things you are really big into, and we'll prepare for a show where we'll talk about that.
How
So,
can we sign up for this? Sorry, I'm interrupting y'all. So
It's okay.
sign up for a radio show.
Yeah.
I don't think signups for next term are up yet. I could be wrong, but at some point they will come up. If you want, I can email you whenever I'm doing it.
Yeah, that's cool. I wanna have my own slot. I remember I had a friend who was up here for.
Yeah, we should have one, bro.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Well, you're free to do that. We do have a show to do, but thank you
Okay,
for
Thank
caring
you.
enough to
Sorry.
come on and everything.
Sorry, you guys. Thank you.
No, it's fine. It was a surprise.
Yeah, woohoo!
I don't know. So,
So, a needle pulling thread.
I have a sweet mate who says that a lot. What's that even
It's
from?
from The Sound of Music.
Oh,
A doe, a deer, a female deer, ray, a drop of golden sun. Me a name, I call myself along the way to run. And
Is-
so, a needle pulling thread.
is Sound of Music a?
Musical.
It's a musical.
Mhm.
I have not
It's
seen.
also a film.
I have not seen or heard of it. So, is that something I should see?
Definitely. Like, yeah.
So, what we just saw there was partially poor communication from me with Aisha, and also an example of where you need the different parts to work together.
Exactly.
Otherwise-
a really prime example of needing proper communication amongst the production team.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess I just didn't communicate well enough that it wouldn't be this week. Although, well, it was nice of her to come
Yeah, it's
check.
nice to see like people come and be engaged.
Yeah, engaged. Yeah, exactly. So, with that, with you talking about how, like, if it's done well,
Mm-hmm.
you don't really get anything from it. Have you ever been complimented on your sound design work?
Yeah, I have. Like people I know, I've taught to listen for it. Kind of like I my friends know when I'm involved in shows, and so they know to listen for things like that. Very rarely do I have just a member of the general public. Well, partially because they don't know me, but
Mhm.
like, for example, with TKS, I've never seen anything talking about the sound design in TKS. Right? There are things about lighting design in there, costumes, acting.
But never.
Very rarely is there something about sound. Now, with like rep term a couple years ago, my sophomore year, so that'd be 2016, 2015.
Okay.
I was the sound designer for a show called The Secret in the Wings, directed by Jeff Grace. And I worked every day in the rehearsal hall picking music, and there was a scene where we choreographed the music so tightly to the acting that people said it was almost like the music was another actor on stage, which is the best compliment I've ever received.
Wow.
Just to have the sound be so dynamic and interacting with the actors and them reacting to the music really creates this really cool dynamic.
Yeah. Well, that's just an example of like it working really well together to the point where people are like, no, the sound is a character.
Right.
And it is a crucial part of the production. Like if we didn't have sound design, it'd be nothing. And that was a example of where it was a noticeable
Right.
part, which I mean, anytime I go to a play now, I'm going to pay attention to sound design just from these conversations and be like,
I'm glad to hear that. It's like listening to the soundtrack from a film, kind of, right? When you're watching the film, you don't pay as much attention to the soundtrack
Mhm.
as you probably would if you were, just listen,
if you were just listening to the soundtrack itself.
right,
or-
right. It gives the film a depth, but you don't pay attention to it per se.
It's
And it's the same with plays.
it's like subconscious.
Exactly. And there's so much that the sound can create, tonally and atmospherically that you'd lose without it.
That's really interesting. And with the whole subconscious thing, it's like with that, you get, I don't know, like fear, joy, anything. And a lot of times we don't notice it, which is sort of scary when you consider that marketers know what they're doing. And
exactly. It's not controlling people's emotions, but playing with how you want them to feel and controlling how you want, like getting controlled reactions from people based on pumping sound to them with it, like controlling the parameters, right? And I just happen to control the audio parameter of the productions.
Well, that's definitely, so you wouldn't call it control though. You wouldn't call it like you're controlling them. You're just sort of
guiding is a better word for it, right? There's a certain amount of, like, we want the audience to feel a certain way when we produce a piece. We want the audience to learn from what we have to say, and the way that we set the mood is a major part of sound design.
There you go. Okay. I find that interesting. And I'm just thinking now of all the plays and stuff I've gone to where like sound design, I mean, recent example, I saw Jaws for the first time a couple of weeks, and that's not a theater production, but like the atmospheric sounds and music like really plays a role. Exactly.
Yeah. And if you think about many of the great films, you think about the soundtrack, right? You think of The Godfather, and you think of that little Sicilian village music, right? You think of Lord of the Rings, and you've got these grand overtures, Star Wars, right?
Harry Potter.
Any of these great pieces of cinema come with an equally great sound design.
Yeah, and we don't always think about that, but that's really true. Like, I'm just now, geez.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. What I'm going to ask now, so is what got you started on sound design? What got you started in majoring, because you're majoring in theater?
So when I was, I don't know, 5 or 6, my father ran the soundboard for the choir at my synagogue. And I used to sit with him and like learn and enjoy the service and listen to the music. And when I was 8 or 9, another gentleman took over, who is a producer over at ESPN Radio in the city. And I started learning from him and working with him and learning how to set up and maintain sound equipment and run the systems. And by the time I was 13, I was running the sound system for my synagogue for our Friday night services, setting it up every weekend, taking it down. And so I continued doing that through high school. I wasn't really involved in theater in high school. I found it very cliquey and didn't really like most of the upperclassmen in my school's theater department, and really came back to it when I came to Knox.
Nice. I actually have a few sort of side branching questions off that. So with that, it shows that from a young age you had role models, your father being one of them, and then the ESPN radio guy who were kind enough to be like, oh, I'm going to teach this younger person these things. And that alone can set someone on a path to really enjoy something.
Exactly. And sound has always been a major part of my identity. Like, it's what I do. That is my vocation, right? I've been doing sound system management and audio. I refer to it as audio engineering. It's more the hands-on equipment end of things, as my guiding, that's my foundation. Yeah. Right. And now that I'm here at Knox, I'm starting to dabble more into the design fields.
Okay. So sound is your base, but now you're sort of messing with more design.
I started with the equipment and the technical end and moved towards the artistic.
The artistic end, which I feel like is probably the opposite of what a lot of people.
Yeah. A lot of people, from what I found, have this artistic drive and this artistic, I want to create something. I want to write music. I want to, create these effects, and they learn the equipment as they need it.
Yeah.
Whereas I started off learning live sound, how to do, microphones and amps and all that, and set it up so we could function as a synagogue. and have only recently moved, in the past 4 years, if you count that as recent, to the more artistic end of the spectrum.
That's really cool. I just like the difference in what would normally be expected.
Right.
Another thing I didn't know. So you went to a synagogue, or you were?
I'm Jewish, from the North Shore of Chicago. It's a really big part of my life, I think. Partially because it's so cultural.
Yeah.
Right. Unlike most religions in the world, Judaism has this whole.
It has like
right. We've been outsiders for 2,000 years and very isolated, and so we've very much developed a civilization that runs parallel to Western civilization.
Like the traditions and cultures, like
and foods,
it's really unique and very different. But in like a really cool way. I feel like different can have a negative connotation. Like
it can, but I think it's like. It's a very dynamic religion. It's constantly growing and changing and learning, and particularly my movement, where we're the, I guess you could say, most liberal movement. What we're focused on, we're the Reconstructionist movement. We're focused mostly on looking at old traditions and old cultural experiences and putting new meaning to them. And reevaluating the things we do as Jews and saying, hey, does this still have value in our modern life? How can we give it value again? One metaphor to describe it is taking old wine bottles and filling it with new wine, right? Taking these old traditions and putting new meaning to them.
It's almost like I don't know if I'd say Renaissance, but like a revamp of reevaluating this traditions you've been following.
So like if you've heard of a bat mitzvah before, that was brought on by our movement in the 1920s. Before the 1920s, girls didn't have bat mitzvahs. They didn't read from the Torah.
It was only
males.
Okay.
And the founder of our movement, Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan, had his daughter bat mitzvahed and said, it's not a matter of gender or sex. It's a matter of coming of age. Right. And putting a new meaning and a new twist on that tradition. Right. And making it more accessible. Right. That's another big thing about our movement is we try to make Judaism as accessible. Right. We've been all over queer marriage and interfaith marriage for, the past 20 years. We recently approved for rabbis to be intermarried too.
Man. Well, that's a whole ball of interest.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have you on again just to talk about that, because that is really interesting.
Yeah, I that's definitely a big part of like
who you are
culturally of who I am, right?
Ooh, and that's just talk about like how culture affects who you are and how much should it affect who you are, sort of thing. Like that's interesting.
And like one of the things in theater, like just an example of that. In theater, there's often this perception in staging that if you want a character to be perceived as a good character, as your protagonist, you have them enter from the audience's perspective, the left side of the theater, from stage right, because then they move in the same direction of the native language. They move that the native language is read. So the character would enter the stage from the left side across to the right. Right.
And that just subconsciously
processes that, oh, this is a good character. Right. They're moving with the flow that our brain naturally associates with. But I'm a student of, Hebrew, which moves the other direction, and Chinese, which is vertical. So like I've got this very different perception of things like that.
That's cool. Like I'm all these things. Like next time I go to a theater show, I'm just gonna like be like up band or stage right.
There's so much that is just kind of slipped down to your subconscious that you don't ever really notice unless you take the time to study and really like delve into the academia and the psychology of theater.
Man, that's awesome. So like. Yeah, psychology has to be a huge part of theater, right?
I mean, yes, I don't study psychology, so I can't comment too much. But there is like with realism, the style of theater, many people try to, get into the psychology of their character. That's where method acting comes from, and that whole movement. You've got to understand where this character is coming from in order to authentically act and react.
That makes sense to me. Well, before we got onto the synagogue route, there's another question I want to ask about what you said earlier, where in your high school, the theater had a very cliquey feel.
I mean, it wasn't. I was also only involved for 1 year, right, for my freshman year. But some of the upperclassmen were very rude, and I didn't want to deal with that.
Yeah, and that seems to be like there's this stereotype, right? The theater kids, the theater kids, they're cliquey, they're.
I would say, particularly at Knox, we don't have as much of that issue. I mean, yes, we're all a close group of friends, but I wouldn't say we're exclusionary, right? We try to welcome people in and like bring new people into our department constantly. We always want that turnover. So if you're interested in joining our department, auditions will be at the start of next term for our studio theater season. We have both staged readings, so you don't have to memorize, and bare stage and fully teched plays, depending on your experience. And you can choose what you audition for. So I definitely recommend coming out for that.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to first term, but it was just the process really long, and I was having to do a suite thing. We were going to do something, and so I didn't. But I have friends that do it. You may know, I don't know, Einar does stuff there.
Einar and I just worked on a play together. We worked together on the learning plays.
Nice. Oh yeah, he did do it.
Yeah, he acted in the show.
Hannah, I forget her last. Hannah Johnson might be her name.
I can't say I know a Hannah Johnson off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
I know people in theater, and I've also would say that because of things like Playground and like those smaller plays,
smaller productions,
it feels a lot more accessible.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm really proud of our department for, is that we try to get people involved, and we try to get people to come see our shows, and there's constant opportunities for new blood to get involved. So if you're interested, just show up. Come to the CFA meetings at the start of term, where we talk about the scene shop and the costume shops. And if you come and volunteer and get to know us, you'll find an amazing group of people, amazing opportunities to create dynamic art that is constantly changing and evolving and fleeting, because our productions, they're only up for 4 days, right? We're working on this thing for 8 weeks, and then we have it for 4 days and it's gone forever.
Which is crazy.
Which I think of it, as a commentary on life, right? You work up on all these things, and then they happen and you're stuck. What do you do next?
What do you do next?
And I think if you have a little more structure in that, what do you do next, right? Well, you start working on the next piece, right? I finished working on the learning plays, and now I'm starting to study other texts so I can figure out what I want to direct next year, if I get approved.
If you get approved, yeah.
If I get approved.
Which there is a process for that. So I'm going to look. We've only really gone down 2 of these questions, which makes me we'll probably won't get through them all, but something else about your life that you told me about when we met up beforehand is that you took 6 semesters of photography in high school.
Yeah, I'm really into photography.
But you don't really do anything at the college level, and why is that?
I don't do anything really academically here. I when I first came to Knox, I met with the photography professor, and I was like, hey, I didn't have the opportunity to take AP photography in high school. But here's my portfolio, and I'd like to take a higher level class. And they said no, which is fine. I understand that, but that's not what I want in photography study at this point. Right. I don't need to be doing shoots on line quality, color composition, depth of field. I just need that space for critique.
It'd be the equivalent of someone who's fluent in Spanish taking Spanish 101.
Exactly. And so I haven't done much with the school on that. I do shoot a lot of Bodies Week photos, though.
Which, for people who don't know what that is, Knox, I don't even know if my parents know what this is. Knox does a really cool thing. It's called Bodies Week. It's where you celebrate the body in all its forms.
So it's an event put on by the Students Against Sexism in Society Club. And it's a week focused on body positivity and on things like that. So they have lectures on gender and sexuality and body type things. And it culminates in a gallery of portraits of the students, usually in the Seymour Union. So a lot of students do nude portraits, and the club sets up photographers with pairs up photographers with students to help facilitate this. I don't usually work with the club specifically. I usually work on a more personal level, shooting for my friends. But I got involved through the club sending an email and being like, hey, we need photographers. Who's in?
And it's really cool. Like, I had a lot of suite mates participate in it. Madeline, Glenn, Ollie, like, a lot of people participate in it. And a sort of aspect of it, which I'm kind of curious with you, is there's a very vulnerable aspect to it, right? Like, have there ever been, like, I don't know, weird question, but just like any stories of like someone who wanted to do it but then like backed out? Like, has that happened for like?
Yes, that actually happened to me once this term. I'm not going to say her name because anonymity. But I was working with a close friend of mine. We'd been talking for a while. We met up, in the Gizmo to discuss ideas, much like you and I did before this show. And, the day came that we were going to shoot, beautiful day. And, she's on her way over to my apartment so we can walk and figure out where we were going to do the shoot, and decides, she's really not feeling up to it. But that's one of the wonderful things about the way this program works, is that it's totally volunteer basis, right? And especially working with your friends, it gives you a certain level of comfort, because people do become very vulnerable when they're showing like
a part of themselves that they've not been proud of in the past.
Right. So like I did a number of my pieces last year were focused on self-harm scars. Right. And so we did a lot of portraits where people's faces weren't even in them. So if you didn't know whose piece it was, you wouldn't be able to tell. You wouldn't be able to have a face for the exactly. Scars, and I try when in my shoots to just like be relaxed about it, right? I'll come over. People will often do their makeup while I'm there. I'll set up my camera and just kind of hang out with people. I put on music. We talk. We just chill, and I get people to move around, and it's a low key, like just hanging out as friends. And I happen to have a camera, and you happen to be taking your clothing off. It's
just all these happenings.
Exactly.
And I found it really interesting. I was sort of like, there was like, a couple days where I was debating about doing it, but I decided against it just because I was busy, and I kind of felt like it wasn't for me. It was for, I don't know, like it's for people who have been pressured throughout their life to have a certain body image in mind, I feel like.
Well, I think there's a certain flaw in that mentality, because I think all of us are pressured to live up to certain body images, Like there's certainly a stronger influence on women. Right. And the female body to be, slim and toned and like hourglass shaped. But there's definitely perceptions for men, you've got to be ripped and strong and tall, and like part of Bodies Week is it's for men too, to be aware that, hey, you don't have to fulfill these societal pressures to be the perfect Adonis, right? You can be comfortable in your body.
And I actually had someone say that to me too. So I guess that's two people now who have been it's for everyone. And I think that's true. It's just, I guess, my own like subconscious mentality of me like,
And I think once you, not to pressure you into it, but I think once you do a shoot, I think it'll make you feel a little more comfortable with that.
It's definitely on like the not
bucket list.
Yeah, like I feel like it's something I should do before I leave Knox.
And like I still haven't been in a Bodies Week shoot, right? I'm not that comfortable in my skin to be like, hello, yes, this is me.
Yeah.
But I'm working on it,
Mhm.
right? I've got a piece that a self-portrait I'm doing of a year from now and now, right? Because I don't know if you know this, and your listeners certainly don't, but I'm just coming out of treatment for non-Hodgkin's large B-cell lymphoma. So I went through cancer treatment, through chemotherapy, lost all my hair, and like have really gone through a lot of physical trauma in the past year.
Mhm.
So my piece for next year, hopefully, is side-by-side portraits for a year apart.
That's really cool. That
Yeah.
should be really cool to see. Oh man, that's exciting. Well, what photos are you most proud of? Like in your whole history of doing photography, is there a set? Is there?
I mean, I definitely am. I'm very proud of a piece I did this year for Bodies Week. Claire Cody's shoot.
Mhm.
There's a particular piece where she's arching her back. Claire is an amazingly talented dancer. I don't know if you
I
know
saw
this.
her at the Turp show.
Yeah. And so we went into the new dance studio and did this shoot. And it's just a beautiful, I've posted on Facebook. So if you want to see it,
You want to see it?
I'll also be uploading more pieces soon. So if you're interested in looking at my portfolio, I've got a website. It's tinyurl.com/JPS-photos.
I can get a link of that after this stream is over and just post it on the Big Picture Facebook.
A fair warning, there are a lot of nudes.
A lot of nude photos.
From the past 2-3 years of doing Bodies Week shoots.
So it's not a thing of photos you look at with your children.
No, this is a less than safe for work, but still completely artistic.
Yeah,
nothing
nothing
gruesome or anything, or pornographic in any nature.
It's like, I don't know, paying respect to the human form.
Exactly.
Exactly. Okay, so that's that. So you did bring up the cancer. And was that genetic? Like, did you know it was coming? Or?
No, it completely caught us off guard. I was working an internship at a theater this summer in Oak Park, Illinois, kind of southwest of Chicago, and started developing this nasty cough that didn't go away for a while. I developed it in like end of July, and by the second week of August, I was bedridden with a fever, coughing, vomiting regularly, and it was very problematic. They thought it was pneumonia at first, and I went through, I think, 3 different cycles of antibiotics before they finally did a PET scan and found a softball-sized tumor on the upper lobe of my right lung that had caused my lung to collapse. Part of the reason they found it is the tumor also compressed my superior vena cava, the vein that all the blood above your heart comes back to your heart through.
Oh, wow.
And it was 97% occluded. So 97% blocked, basically just crushed by this tumor.
Jeez.
And so my body had formed this spider web of veins on my chest to literally just take the blood from up here on my chest and move it down to my stomach to bring it back up through the inferior vena cava. And one of the major side effects is that my neck and throat swelled up from all the blood that was trapped. And so that was one of the major factors in catching it.
Wow. See, that's the thing about cancer especially, and just about health in general. Like, I feel like, I mean, I don't want to, but I feel like I'm the kind of person who I would see a sign of something really bad and like, let's give it a couple days.
Right. And that's exactly what this was, right? I started developing this cough in July, and we were like, okay, well, we'll see if it goes away, right?
Yeah.
And then I started developing a fever, and we were like, okay, let's go see a doctor and get antibiotics. And then, 2 weeks later, I'm still running a fever and coughing. And so it just kind of builds up, right?
And it's that whole thing of like, I feel like we have in our society, and it's partially because of the system we have.
I mean, socialized medicine, like I'm fortunate that that my family has good health insurance, and that my father's employer was willing to help him work his hours and be flexible about all that, so he could take me to my appointments and everything. But other people aren't that fortunate.
They don't have the resources, and that's why socialized medicine might be a good idea,
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I mean, I'm not a professional or anything, but it makes sense.
I mean, look at Canada.
Yeah.
They've got some stuff figured out.
They definitely do. And with that, I feel like also partially because of that, in our culture, we have this thing where we don't like to go to the doctors immediately.
Right.
We're like, and sometimes it's embarrassing. Like colon cancer has to be like you have to kind of be embarrassed to go at first, but like it's a serious thing and you should get checked.
And at first, when they were first testing, they thought it might be testicular cancer, because in men, particularly my age, it's not uncommon for that to develop in the lymphatic system, right? And that's one of those things where like you wouldn't really talk about it, on live radio or even with your friends, right? It's something that is very, I don't know,
vulnerable.
It's back to that vulnerability thing.
Yeah.
It shows that you have flaws, which people in America are very like unwilling to show to each other,
which is interesting.
Yeah.
Definitely. And so with your struggles through cancer, it's a radio show, we should play at least one song.
Yes.
There was a song that you told me that got you through a lot, which was by Green Day.
Yes.
It's a song I liked as well. Let me find it. It's called I think it's actually called Still Breathing.
It is Still Breathing.
Yeah.
And I had a number of very cathartic cry sessions in the shower, just belting this song out. So I hope you guys all really enjoy it, and it helps you through whatever you're going through. And like, just remember, you're still breathing, you're still here, and like, you can make it. Right?
There you go. That's actually a really nice message right there. So I'm going to play this on. The live stream will still go, so you can see us like jamming out, I guess. And that'll be that. Be back in a bit. This sounds really good.
Yeah.
This would show up on the radio
I'm
back
still
home.
alive. Oh, definitely. That's how it came back to me, as I found it on 101.1, I think. It's a pop punk station in Chicago. Yeah, in indie rock, alternative.
Yeah.
My freedom from the storm, just shine a light into the wreckage. So far away, but I'm still breathing. 'Cause I'm still breathing on my own. My head's above the rain and roses, making my way, still breathing.
This is my kind of music. I'm a rock guy.
I understand. Like, We the Kings, Green Day, Panic.
Oh, yeah.
MCR. I mean, I don't know if you consider Panic a rock.
I mean,
but
rock's one of those things. There's all these levels.
Yeah, it's like indie alternative,
punk rock. Like you have all these
pop punk garbo.
Yeah, it's great. But it is, and it's really cool. Like to have a song that like gets you through a moment. When a good friend of mine, Cody, passed away just last term.
I'm sorry really to hear that.
Yeah, it's definitely sad, but like,
is he a student here or back home?
Back home. Really good friend. One of the songs he really loved and got me through it was "Time in a Bottle," which is like saying,
"If I could place time in a bottle, the first
like
thing that I'd like to do." Yeah, I love Jim Croce.
Yeah,
my dad listens to it.
Also, "Oh Child."
I don't know that.
Child.
Things are gonna be easier. Yeah. Like I don't necessarily know artists, but if you can hum the tune, I probably know the song.
I'm actually very similar. You'll name a band and I'll go,
huh?
I've probably heard them.
Yeah,
definitely.
Although I'm not big on most contemporary artists.
Contemporary being like popular.
Poppy, EDM-y. Like I'm not big on electronic music or dance. Like I listen to a little hip hop, mostly chants.
Yeah.
But like,
actually, We had Liam on last week. We talked a bit about rap. And
Liam
Houlihan, yeah. We talked a lot about poetry and rap, and it was really fun. Unfortunately, the audio quality wasn't very good.
Yeah.
But
hopefully we'll be better with this new shiny mic.
My dad texted me earlier saying that video is much better.
Okay,
I
cool.
assume he means the audio because it's the same camera
webcam and everything.
So I hope he means that.
My head's above the rain and roses, making my way away, 'cause I'm still breathing. 'Cause I'm still breathing on my own. My head's above the rain and roses, making my way away. I'm still breathing. 'Cause I'm still breathing on my own. My head's above the rain and roses, making my way away, my way to you.
Some music, and then it'll be back, I suppose. And there you go. We are back. That was Green Day, Still Breathing. If you watch or are watching the Facebook live feed, my dad just said, yes, audio is great, for one. So listen to that. You'll know that you will have heard us singing it wonderfully, if I do say so.
I mean, you know me.
Maybe after radio, I'll go on tour.
I mean, I support that.
Yeah, it should be great.
I'll help you set up your mics.
Oh, that'll be great. That's the plan. That's the plan right there. Okay. We're kind of coming close. We've been on for 41 minutes, which probably means, yeah. So we have a little over 15 minutes left. And I want to sort of end our like last chunk of discussion. I want to talk about a life philosophy you brought up that you live by, and I am excited to talk about because I'm a little bit of a philosophy nerd, and I love to hear what other people's life philosophies are. And how about you explain it?
So I live by this philosophy that I refer to as radical love, right? Which is, if you did a quick Google search on radical love, mostly what you'd find is this literature on queer people in theology and the dynamics between being gay and being Christian and things like that. But I take it as more of a radical in the sense of it's different in American society. You loving your friends and people and really expressing that love, right? If you can find a way to express love for even people you don't necessarily get along with and show people that you really care about them and their well-being, it's the greatest way to change the world.
And it's just it's unconditional love, like
exactly,
compassion, which can be hard. And a topic I wanted to bring up is this idea that can you force love and compassion for someone?
Well, there's a difference between compassion and love, right? And there's a difference between I wouldn't say you necessarily force it, right? There are some people you won't like, right? There are plenty of people I don't like. There are people I don't like that I work with on a daily basis, right? But I still support them, and I still try to find ways to help them through what they're going through and to be better, right? And I look in my friends, I look for people who will express love for me and care for me and help me be a better person.
So in a way, even though it's people that you may not on a natural level care about all that much or anything, it's taking it to that radical level. It's saying, I'm still going to be compassionate to this person because I want to be. It's
right, because I want to make the world a better place, right? We may disagree, right? But I still want you to be happy. I still want you to be healthy.
Because happy, healthy people will help other people be happy.
Precisely. Right. And even if we disagree philosophically, right? I've got friends who are gun-toting, Republican voting, right?
I come from Southern Illinois. I have many friends like that as well.
And very right-wing, traditional Christian evangelical people. Yeah. But I still care about them, and I still care that about their well-being. I disagree with them on fundamental levels, right? I'm a democratic socialist Jew, right? But I still want these people to be happy and find love and like
make the world
a better place.
Yeah. A quote I really like when talking about changing the world and making the world a better place is sort of toted around everywhere, but like, be the change you want to see in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're doing. If you're showing love to everyone, you're saying, hey, I think everyone should show love, right?
Mm-hmm. And one of the big tenets of Judaism that we kind of talked about is, if not me, who, right? Mm-hmm. If not now, when, right? Mm-hmm. You've got to be the force that makes change in the world if you want to see change in the world.
It's taking responsibility.
Yeah,
in a way.
It is. It really is. And saying, hey, I want people to care about each other and support each other, even if we disagree, right? And still respect one another's life stories and opinions. And I think America has a big problem with that right now, that we're so ingrained in these fundamentally opposite ideas that we forget that the other side are still human beings.
I get that a lot. I don't know how controversial this will be, but like, people who do say, and it's their right to say this, like, oh, those Republican Trump voters, like, they're horrible people and they're awful. But
most of the time they're just misinformed.
They're either misinformed or they just come from a different background where they have this opinion of,
they don't have the same exposure.
Yeah, they don't have the same experiences, which would give them different opinions. And like, it's just different. And like, a majority of my good friends back home, including Cody, who, passed away last term, like, very conservative, very, like you said, big on Second Amendment, like, but they're human beings and they still can show love and compassion. And it's just, in our society, I mean, same thing happened when Obama got elected. Like, every time
there was that lashback.
Yeah, which I was really angry because I was kind of wanting, like, when Trump got elected, like, have the Women's March, which was great. It was like the biggest women's march in history, right?
It was one of the biggest marches on Washington in history, certainly.
Yeah. Like, do that, but like, also, like, be bigger than, like, be like, okay,
be the bigger person in a way.
Because like, the Republican reaction to Obama being elected was very similar.
It was also very violent, right? Something I noticed between the conservative and liberal reactions is that the Republican reaction when Obama was elected, yes, it was effigy burning and marches, right? We had the same thing when Trump was elected, but there was also that racial tension between it.
It was, there was this difference. So like, an example I use is whenever I describe like sort of similarities, but also differences, like when Obama got elected, to try to discredit him, they were saying he was born in another country, which had this raciul
tension and qualities to it.
Yeah. When Trump got elected, people tried to disqualify him by saying, the Electoral College and
but rather than quote, like, I don't want to say making something up, but rather than making something up that was reactionary and bigoted, it was something that was based in the system and more.
Yeah, or even saying like he just wasn't qualified, like people would say, which that's a whole nother
That's
argument.
A whole nother cup of beans.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. But like, the reactions are both similar and different.
Yeah.
But I think that comes from the backgrounds too. Like, the people who don't want to generalize. Like the angry minority of Republicans tend to be racist, and of course, so that would be the thing there, as opposed to the vocal minority, and the Democrats are more focused on like the social justice sort of thing. Yeah,
and part of my philosophy is that if you can go to these communities where people aren't as educated or as aware of social issues, and despite them having issues with racism or classism, if you can still express affection and caring towards them, that will change their opinions, right?
Much better than
if you have a if me as a Jew, if I go and have a good interaction with someone who's anti-Semitic, that will change their view of what Jews are like.
That'll do much more than just
yelling at them about, hey, you're a bad person because you're anti-Semitic, right? If I can demonstrate a love for them and care for them, even though I disagree with them, that's what changes the world.
And that's so big. Like, I think we're really bad about that now, like you were saying, but like with one of the greatest examples I have was me and Cody, because I would drive him home often because he didn't get his license till like he was 18 or something, just busy with stuff. And I would drive him home and we'd always have these discussions, and like we were friends, so we were really friendly with each other and we talk about it, and like
even though you disagreed.
Even though we disagreed. And because of that, eventually, you know, he became a bit more like, yeah, socialize, like we were talking about it, or socialized medicine does sound like a good thing. And I was a bit more lenient on gun stuff, I guess.
Right. I mean, like, I'm a Boy Scout, right? I don't know if you know this, but I've got my Eagle Scout, and I love shooting guns, right? I love shooting skeet and just stations with shotgun and riflery, and I love it. But I think there's a time and a place for it, right? And that
I would agree.
Not to, I don't want to dabble into that too much.
I'm just saying, I would agree.
Yeah.
But like, I don't think you need, I don't know. That's a whole nother discussion. You don't need military grade weapons to defend your home. Typically.
I mean, or to hunt.
Or to hunt.
Yeah. No one needs an AR-15 except the military.
But shooting ranges, I mean, heck.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I love shooting shotgun. It's great. It's so like cathartic in a way. So.
Definitely. Well, to continue with this question on talking about your philosophy, I suppose we kind of touched on this, but do you think that everyone should sort of follow this philosophy? And if they did, do you think you would see this great change?
I think so. I think if everyone took a step back from our interactions with others, and we looked at, you know, how we relate with people who, especially people that we disagree with and people we don't inherently like, right? And if we take a step back and go, you know, how do all my interactions with this person, one, reflect on me, but how do these affect them, right? If I'm constantly yelling at, you know, you for being a gun-toting racist, not that you are, right?
Thank you for clarifying.
That will change your perception of me. You'll think I'm aggressive and that I'm just yelling at you for who you are, as opposed to expressing that I care for you and that I want to help you grow and learn. Yeah. Right?
My phone's just going off right now. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And like, it's just always, I definitely think, like, I never called it radical love, but I like that terminology of it. I just called it caring about other people and being a good person.
I mean, yes, but if it is, that's exactly what it is. But if you put it in this context of it's something new, it's something different, people are more likely to latch on to it, right? Yeah. If you put a term to it for people to
kind of cling to. Yeah, I definitely see that. So something that was brought up while we were talking about that, before the show, whenever you were like, yeah, radical love, it was like, so you're just like, oh, love everyone. Something you brought up is that you, despite this philosophy, people may think you'd be like, oh, I love you all the time, but you actually don't use that term a lot.
No, I really rarely tell people that I love them. You know, I'll tell people that I care about them, that I'm affectionate towards them, but unless I'm, like, sometimes people will say it and I'll be like, yeah, I love you too.
Yeah, they're kind of like...
But I'm a hopelessly romantic person, right? And I just always have been. And so I very much reserve the phrase I love you for romantic interactions, right? And I think there are ways to express your love for people without using that phrase, right?
Yeah, and I... Personally, I've been trying not to use that term as much because I feel like it's one of those things where after you use it a lot, it kind of loses. It
becomes numb.
Yeah.
Right.
While other people may still hold it to the higher, like you may hold it to this standard, other people hold it to this, and so you can make people uncomfortable by
exactly right. It's just like me. I get.
Yeah.
I turn inward when people say that they love me. Right. Particularly when friends say that, because it's. For me, it's a very familial and like romantic connotation.
Yeah, I definitely can see that. So there you go. Like, just because it's radical love doesn't mean you're always saying, "Oh, I love you." It's just It's not saying you love them; it's showing.
It's demonstrating, right?
Yeah.
Take love and make it tangible, not just auditory.
There you go. Those will be the people who will be on next, who just came in. So another question, sort of the last question I have down, but we can talk more. For you personally, and this will be for me too, I suppose, but like, isn't it hard to show that compassion and that love for someone who has maybe wronged you? Or
it's very, very hard. It takes a lot of willpower, right? To be able to see someone who's wronged you and to still care about them, right? You've got to be able to figure out, why did this thing happen, right? How did they wrong you? What was there? Were they trying to hurt you? Because if someone's being malicious and trying to hurt you, like, to be honest, don't deal with them. You don't need that stress in your life. But if someone's hurt you by accident, a relationship that ends poorly, things like that, it's not because this person wants to hurt you. It's for other reasons. You may not mix well, right? But you can still express that you care about that person, right? And still be nice to them, right? Just be freaking nice to people.
Because it's that whole thing. I always say, like, I don't understand myself, let alone other people. So I'm not going to pretend I know why someone did something they did. If I sometimes ask, why did I do that?
Exactly.
So having that empathy to be like, this person wronged me, but who have I wronged?
Right. I've definitely wronged a multitude of people in my 22 years on this earth. But to still be able to express affection towards people and that you care for them and being able to help them, I think rounds you out as a person and helps you be the kind of person that helps other people blossom.
I definitely like that. And it's hard, like we're saying, because
it's so hard. It's so easy to be petty. It's so easy to just...
You'll sometimes get this, like, volatile reaction to seeing someone you don't like just like, ugh.
Like, oh, I don't want to be in the same room with them. But you still, if you just express courtesy and care for them and, like, you never know how helping someone is going to change your life or their life, right? And you never know what the future holds. So why would you close those doors?
I definitely understand that.
What's the point in a bad breakup?
To get something I don't know.
Right? Like, sure, things can end poorly, but it's still, you still have that understanding of people and that relationship with them, Why throw that away?
That's true. I actually understand that very well. I went through a breakup a while ago. I think that's very true. And it can be hard to get back to that, I suppose, or get to a place where you don't have that volatile reaction and
it takes time. Yeah. It really takes time, and it takes effort to make yourself realize that they weren't trying to hurt you. They just were living their life and doing what was right for them. Right. And you've got to find ways to respect that and help them through that process.
You have to have the humility too.
You really do.
It's like, no, it's not just, because I feel like in a breakup, you either have the tendency to really hate yourself or really hate the other person.
Right. And you've got to realize that there's two people involved and everyone has their own needs. And sometimes people just don't work well together. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't still express care for each other.
And shouldn't still be treated as human.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very true. We only have 2 minutes left, so I want to give this time. I was debating about playing a song, but I'm like, whatever. We're talking. If you have anything to say to possibly you in the future, looking back at this live video, or to anyone out there about love, about anything we've talked about, maybe about something we haven't.
I mean, it's a dark and scary world out there, right? People get cancer. There are people who shoot up schools, right? And it's a dark world. It's a scary world. But if you just remember that there are people out there who love you, your friends love you, your family loves you, even if they don't say the words, even if I don't say the words to you, I still love you. And I still think that you should try to create a better world, right? If not now, when? If not who, me? Or if not I, who?
Yeah. There you go. the big picture supports that message. Just so you know. Well, it's been great to have you on.
Thank you
It
for
really
having
has
me.
been.
This was actually really fun.
Yeah, just to be able to talk about your passions. And
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
So thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, and thank you for coming on. I'll maybe have you on again to talk about some of the side conversations we were kind of close to entering into.
That sounds wonderful.
awesome.
So,
Well,
thank you everyone for listening.
yeah, and for those who will listen after this is posted, thank you. And this has been The Big Picture, 90.7 WVKC, the voice of Knox, and thank you all for listening.